What is up? Welcome in, gather round, folks, to another episode of The Breakout. I am your host, Abhi Gupta, and on today's episode, folks, Lord have mercy, we have 7 trades in the first 13 picks of our 2021 rookie draft. Folks, there is so much to dive into today, and we are excited that you have joined us. But before we jump in, I would like to thank everybody who has subscribed to the channel so far. We have just passed 100 subscribers, and we want to thank every single one of you. But we also know that there are a lot of you out there who do watch our content, but aren't subscribed. So if you do like this content, if you do like what we're putting out, then please give us a like, give us a sub. We would love to have you part of the community so that you know whenever we are pushing out new content so that you can better educate yourself about the Dynasty game. So without further ado, let's dive right in. Folks, this has been an absolutely bonkers rookie mock draft. Folks, I can't even describe to you in the first, 3 hours of our draft. For full context, these are 8-hour pick selections, people taking their times, fielding offers, making trades. We had 7 trades total across the first 13 picks. So I think that is really, really useful for us to dive into what your drafts could look like and what are the kinds of moves that you might want to be targeting based on the status of your team, based on your competing window, and depending on the league economy that you're dealing with. So let's dive into the first trade. So with the 3rd overall pick, a team that is not in competition, not ready to compete just yet, is looking to bulk up their roster and ultimately traded away the 103 for the 105 pick and a 2022 first. So, in a nutshell, I think that this trade makes sense, right? If you're moving down from 103 to 105, you are probably going to not get the top quarterback, but you are probably going to get your pick of Jamar Chase, Kyle Pitts, whatever you view as your top non-QB asset. So if you're aiming for Najee as a running back, if you're aiming for Kyle Pitts as a tight end, if you're aiming for Jamar Chase or Devonta Smith as your wide receiver 1, this is the kind of trade that you want to make. But it's really important to understand the pros and the cons of these kinds of moves. Because if you are a team that is playing Superflex, and you are a team that is looking to compete very, very soon, and you are a team that is looking to get the most bang for your buck, I'm not sure that this is the trade that you want to make. And let me tell you why. So according to the draft that we've had, the 1st overall pick was Trevor Lawrence. The 2nd pick was Justin Fields. And so at pick number 3, you now have likely 4 people that you're picking between. You're picking between Jamar Chase, you're picking between Kyle Pitts, you're picking between Zach Wilson, and you're picking between Trey Lance. And in Superflex, we've talked ad nauseum about how important the quarterback position is. So if you are trading out of the 103 to the 105, you best believe that you are probably not going to have a quarterback available to you at the 5th pick. So that means that Trey Lance and Zach Wilson are the value picks at 103 and 104. So if you're going to move out of the quarterback tier to 105, you need to make sure that you are extracting just value for the quarterback position that you're leaving by trading that pick away. So I think it's really helpful to think about this from the perspective of players. We're no longer in that realm where, I got a starting running back, I need 2 firsts for that player. No, now we can put names to each of those picks. We know where those players, what players are going to be at each of those picks. And so based on that, I think it's a lot more helpful to say, hey, the trade that we have on hand is Trey Lance for Jamar Chase and a 2022 first. Are you making that trade if you are rebuilding? No, I don't think I am, because I think that the value that I can get for Trey Lance far supersedes the value that Jamar Chase and a first next year could get me. I think minimum to minimum, I am beginning with Jamar Chase, a first, and another first, and that is where we begin conversations. Folks, In most leagues, quarterbacks are fetching 3 firsts, let alone the 3rd overall pick who is going to a Kyle Shanahan type offense. At the end of the day, when you're making this kind of trade, you need to make sure that you are not trading for need, but you're trading for value. Because the worst thing that can happen for you is for you to be able to pick a player at a given point, but you're not extracting the most value from that pick. Let me give you a hypothetical. Let's say that you're sitting at 101. You don't need any quarterbacks. Let's say that your quarterback room was Dak Prescott and Joe Burrow, right? So last year they both got hurt. Your team's really crappy. Now you're sitting at 101. But your team, you really just don't have any running backs. So Najee could be perfect for you. Why would you pick Najee at 101 over Trevor Lawrence? How many Najees can you get in return for Trevor Lawrence? I think you can get at least 2 Najees in return for Trevor Lawrence, and that's the minimum bar. Your goal should be to maximize value because nobody is playing any damn snaps for another 4 months. And that means that you need to maximize your window right now in terms of value. Draft Trevor Lawrence, or in this case, draft whoever, Justin Fields or Trey Lance, and make sure that you flip those assets for the needs that you have on your team. So coming back to this trade, 103 for 105 and a first next year. I think that the person who traded up to 103 and only gave up the 105 and a 2022 first, hands down, extracted immense value out of this trade. And for that, I give them kudos and make sure that you learn from the mistakes that person made. The next trade is something that is case in point to the discussion that we just had about the 103 trade. So we'll put this trade up on the screen. And this trade reset the market. So we're sitting at 104, and Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence, and Trey Lance have all been gone. So we're now sitting with Zach Wilson as the pick, right? Because once Zach Wilson is gone, then we see a massive drop in the quarterback tier system. So there are many teams out there who need quarterbacks. They abso-damn-lutely need quarterbacks in order for their team to be able to compete. Yes, you can run it back with Kirk Cousins and a bunch of running backs, but in order to maximize the longevity of your team's impact, you need quarterbacks. And this person was sitting here pretty, right? So their team roster, I believe that they have Patrick Mahomes, they have Matt Ryan, they have Tom Brady, they have Jimmy Garoppolo. So they don't really need a quarterback. They need youth, but it's not something that is preventing, they don't need another quarterback in order to be competitive. So this person traded away the 104 overall pick, which is effectively Zach Wilson, for Joe Mixon, the 112, a 2022 first, and a 2023 first. So net 3 firsts and Joe Mixon for Zach Wilson. This is an absolutely slam dunk value. Someone sends me that at 104. I am smash accepting that, especially from the perspective of somebody who doesn't need a quarterback. Because if we take a look at what someone just gave up for Trey Lance versus what I'm being offered for a lesser player in Zach Wilson, ooh, baby, this is absolute value. This is money. This is smash accept. And look, man, Joe Mixon just signed a really long contract. I think it was a 4-year extension. He's going to be in Cincinnati for quite some time. You add that in with the 112 pick where you are going to still be in the first tier of players in the 2021 NFL draft class. On top of that, you get 2 more firsts, and you are going to be able to flip that. You want a quarterback for your team, you can go trade a first for Kirk Cousins. You can trade a first for Ryan Tannehill. You can trade a first for any starting quarterback down the line. And, this is something that, when you get these offers, they don't come super frequently, but when they come in the heat of moment, like draft day, you got to maximize your value. And honestly, like I've said that so many times at this point that should probably just be the motto of the show. Maximize your value, understand value, and then maximize it. But you guys know what it is. Now, I think it's really important to also stress why this other guy made the trade all the way up from 112 and all of these assets to the 104 position. If we take a look at this dude's roster, he just won the championship in our league, hence he's 112. But if you look at the players that he has on his team, he has Josh Allen, he has Austin Eckler, he has A.J. Brown, he has Amari Cooper. Like, on the whole, that roster is kind of sort of in win now mode, because a lot of his players, Austin Eckler, Amari Cooper, they're not going to be players who are, going to be making that kind of impact 2 years down the line. So it makes a lot of sense that this guy is trying to trade all of his assets in order to get something that will give him value right now. And in this case, that's a really young quarterback who was really hyped up by draft season. But I think net, this person did not get really good value for their pick, because when I really look at it, right, I think that Kirk Cousins might provide more points for you this year than, Zach Wilson. I mean, I think that most people would reasonably say, hey, I'll take 3 firsts and Joe Mixon for Russell Wilson. I'll take 3 firsts and Joe Mixon for I don't know, any like meaningful starting quarterback, that at least gets people thinking and talking. And when I take a look at what happened in this draft with this trade, this person missed out on a monster opportunity to keep Joe Mixon, who a lot of people are saying, with Joe Burrow returning, with the Bengals, investing in their offensive line, he's going to have a really, really good season. And if you're telling me that, hey, all I got to do is flip the 112 and maybe a first next year and I get Kirk Cousins, and now I have an offense where I have Josh Allen, Austin Eckler, Joe Mixon, Kirk Cousins, A.J. Brown, Amari Cooper, and I'm running it back, right? So my team only got better. Hell yeah, that is way, way, way better value for you trying to compete right here and right now. So as you can see with this trade, what we ultimately have is a question of timelines and a question of values. And I think that the person who is not ready to compete just got mammoth value for what they were putting up with. And, to you, I give you massive kudos. You get an offer like this, you need to smash accept. So that brings us to the 105 pick. And this is a really interesting situation, folks, because as we've been telling you for months, the top 4 picks are going to be quarterbacks in your Superflex leagues if you're playing with people who actually understand how to play the game. With all 4 of Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence, Trey Lance, and Zach Wilson being gone. And when you look at my board or when you look at Leo's board, we have a very clear top, elite, generational, bulletproof tier. And that includes those 4 quarterbacks, Jamar Chase, and Kyle Pitts. Once you move past those 6 prospects, you see a massive drop in value, in potential, and in overall, price point. If I'm moving from the 106 to the 107, I am likely going to be losing a lot of capability and value. And that's why it's important to recognize that when you are in the top 6 picks of this draft, your conversation with other people should not be, hey, I'm moving down 1 pick. It is, I'm going from Kyle Pitts to not Kyle Pitts. And because of that, I need to be compensated fairly. And that kind of brings us to this trade where the 105 pick, you have your pick of Jamar Chase or Kyle Pitts, and that pick gets traded down 105 for the 111 and a 2022 first. So in a nutshell, what this person has done is they've said, hey, I'm going to leave the 103 to go to the 105 and get a first. And then I'm going to trade the 105 to get down to the 111 and get another first. So net, this person has traded from the 103 to the 111 and got to a first on top of that. In summation, I don't think that I would have done that. But when you really take a look at what this person's philosophy was, it's accrue picks. Perhaps they really, really believe in, the value of the 2022 draft class. Perhaps they really don't like the players that they see in this draft class. But if you're asking me, and you're asking me about what is the value that you have, again, for 105, I'm now trading Jamar Chase for potentially Mac Jones, for potentially Rashad Bateman, for potentially, Javonte if he falls that far. And that only throwing me another first on top of that is not going to cut it. That just ain't it. So what this person did was effectively stockpile picks in order to continue staying in an overall top tier of first round talent. And I would not have made this trade. The person who moved up from 111 actually paid a pretty cheap price to move up and draft Ja'Marr Chase at 105. And I don't think we need to dig too much deeper into this one. The story here is that if I'm at 105, I traded out of a top 6 generational tier in order to get, still a tier 1 person, but not getting enough value back in return for that. So this brings us to the 106 pick. So at this point, we have all 4 of the quarterbacks drafted and Ja'Marr Chase. And 106 was actually a trade that was made earlier in the season by me, where I traded away Alvin Kamara for this first next year, and a third next year. And all in all, the ideology here is that, I wanted to trade away Alvin Kamara while he had peak value in order to ascertain more picks in this particular draft. And what that has afforded me is Kyle Pitts. When you're sitting at the 106, you are likely sitting with the choice of Ja'Marr Chase or Kyle Pitts. And, with this particular pick, there really isn't much finagling you can do. Most of the times with these two players, you would see them going in the top 3 in most annual rookie drafts. But because we had so many top quarterbacks go this year, these guys got pushed down. And so in most years, I'm not getting this kind of value at 106, and I just happen to get lucky. I don't think that there's a lot more to say about this trade, because you are going to trade for Alvin Kamara ahead of time if your team is in a win-now window. And you are going to trade away Alvin Kamara if he's not going to do you any services right now. In my world, I traded away Alvin Kamara because my team was not very good, and by getting 30 points a week off of my roster, it guaranteed that I would move from the 5 or 6 position down to the bottom 2, and that would mean that I would get my pick of one of the top quarterbacks. This brings us to the 109 pick. Now, this is again a trade that I made way ahead of time. Last offseason, I recognized that my team just was not cutting it. I was new to Dynasty. There were a lot of moves that I needed to make in order to make this roster competitive. And I had Ryan Tannehill, and he was coming off of this AFC Championship run with the Titans. And my quarterback room just running off of Ryan Tannehill, I was fearful of a massive regression, especially considering the Titans had not seen sustained success for an extended period of time. I thought it was a team that caught lightning in a bottle, and so it was time for me to move off of Ryan Tannehill. So I traded away Ryan Tannehill for a 2021 first last season, and that turned out to be this pick. These types of trades are all about the window that you're competing in. If you are a quarterback away from competing, right, you are willing to trade away first for a quarterback who's going to help you win now. And this was a trade that I did with Leo. If that guy who had traded away 3 firsts and Joe Mixon for Zach Wilson had simply traded away a first for Kirk Cousins or Ryan Tannehill or any of these quarterbacks, Carson Wentz, that is a much better value, and it hurts you a lot less if that quarterback flops. And for a rebuilding team, you're really not trying to play the NBA 8th team type of role, right? You're not trying to be the Charlotte Hornets. You're not trying to be all of these teams that kind of sit there at the bottom of the playoffs or at the top of the non-playoff teams. In Dynasty, it's kind of a zero-sum game. You either want to be at the very top competing for a championship, or you want to suck real bad so that you get the best players. Being stuck in the middle is the absolute worst thing that you can do. And so when you have opportunities to sell and, the value is pretty palatable, make those trades. It is better to pull the trigger early than to pull the trigger way, way later. Because I don't think today I would be able to sell a lot of these guys for the values that I got them a year ahead of time. Now, the next trade was a trade that Leo made, and I think that this was one of the smartest moves that I have seen in any of the rookie drafts that I've partaken in. So we'll put the trade up. Leo traded away the 201 and the 208 for the 110 overall pick. And for a lot of people, they might say, hey, man, like you traded away the top second round pick and you traded away like a mid to late second in order to move up like 5 or 6 spots. That seems like really stupid value. But if you really want to understand how to finesse your league, you got to understand how these tiers work. And you've heard me mention it so many times within this episode and in previous episodes. And that is understanding where you see a drop off in potential players. So as I mentioned to you before, in the top of the draft, you have these 6 players, the 4 quarterbacks, Kyle Pitts and Jamar Chase. They are a very clear-cut top tier of the top tier, right? The cream of the crop, the icing on the cake, whatever analogy you want to use. But as you drop past that top 6, you still have a lot of good first-round talents, right? You have guys like Najee, you have guys like Travis Etienne, you have Mac Jones, you have Javonte Williams, you have Jalen Waddle, you have Devonta Smith, you have Rashad Bateman, you have Rondale Moore. Really, you've got a really good selection of first-round picks, guys who I wouldn't want to take over the top 6 guys, but it's very, very clear what those guys are going to produce for you. Once you move past those top 12 to 13 guys, you are now in, a lot more of a question mark. Hey, like I think this guy has talent, but I don't know what he's going to produce. We're talking about guys like Terrence Marshall. We're talking about guys like Diami Brown. We're talking about guys like Trey Sermon. We're talking about guys like Kellen Mond. We're talking about like Amon-Ra St. Brown. A lot of these guys have talent, but we don't really know what's going to happen with them. And we don't think that their talent is so strong that they're going to outshine their situation. It's a lot less bulletproof than a guy like Rashad Bateman, who, a lot of people think that he could be even the top receiver in this draft. And going to Lamar, people are saying, well, he's not going to get as many receptions as, he would if he went to a better passing team. That's not really true because Rashad Bateman's talent is so strong that we actually anticipate that he is going to open up a lot of the passing game. That talent speaks for itself, while Amon-Ra St. Brown or Terrence Marshall, we have a lot more questions about. And so what Leo did here, and you might see this on his Twitter, he has been a strong proponent of identifying these tiers and moving into those tiers so that you don't miss out on that drop-off of talent. So sitting at 201, Leo would likely be looking at a Rondale Moore or a Terrence Marshall or maybe Devonta if he drops. But if he moves up into the 110, then he could be looking at the RB3. So whoever is left of Javonte or Etienne or of Najee. He could be looking at Jalen Waddle, or he could be looking at Mac Jones. All of those players are just inherently higher value than anybody that you could get at the top of the second. And so what Leo is doing is consolidating his assets because you don't want the most players. You want the best players. You would rather have 4 guys on your team that put up 40 every week rather than 5 guys who put up 50. You want guys who dominate and who will put you over the scoring limit in your league. And at the end of the day, this is the kind of move that you should be making. If you have an offer in place where you can trade away 2 seconds and a third in order to move up into the top 10, that is like not even a question. You need to do that right here, right now. And if any of you are looking for those kinds of trades and you're not sure what kind of value you can extract from the picks that you have, throw them down in the comments, and Leo and I will comment back and let you know what are the types of players you could be looking at versus the kinds of players you might be looking at if you make a trade up into the top 12. So make this move. So as we move on through the draft, the 111 pick was one of the picks that was traded all the way down. 112 was the result of the Joe Mixon and 3 first trade. And in our leagues, we play with a really interesting setting, which I think some of you, if you're starting new leagues, you want to join the Breakout Dynasty League, we're starting a new league. One of the settings that we absolutely love is what we call the consolation prize, the toilet bowl prize. And the way that this works is, yes, the championship is all about, or everybody's playing for the championship. Everybody wants to win the pot, at the end of the season. That's why we play Dynasty. But what about the 6 teams that don't make your playoffs, right? They're just kind of sitting there twiddling their thumbs. They're not really playing for anything. So a way that you can increase engagement and incentive in your league is by playing in the toilet bowl. And the way that this works is that the worst 6 teams play in a consolation bracket at the same time that the playoffs are going. And the player who wins the toilet bowl consolation bracket gets the 13th overall pick, the very last pick of the first round. So it's one additional pick. And this is really interesting because this is a value pick. It's not an outsized value, right? It's not going to like be a Trevor Lawrence, but it is going to be a player who's impactful. And last year, that was a Henry Ruggs. This year in several leagues that I've played, that's been Rashad Bateman. A player who has first round draft capital who could be really good and is worth a flyer. And so that means that we have one extra asset to play with. And according to my board, we have a 13-player first tier. 12 players if I remove Devonta, but I'm not going to spite all of you Devonta fans out there. What we're looking at here is once I move past the 13th pick, I see a significant drop-off. I think that there's a massive drop-off between Rashad Bateman and Terrence Marshall. I think that there's a massive drop-off between Rashad Bateman and Rondale Moore. I think there's a massive drop-off between Rashad Bateman and Diami Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown. At the end of the day, I want to move into the top 13 picks in order to make sure that I get the value that I think that, that exists in that tier. And so I made this trade where I traded away the 202 and the 302 in order to acquire the 113. And I got super, super damn lucky. Last night, Rashad Bateman was available at 112. The person was sitting there with the choice of Devonta Smith or Rashad Bateman. I was sweating bullets. I don't want Devonta on my team. I don't think he's going to be very good. That's not true. I think he's going to be good, but I think he's going to be hurt all the time, and that is a major concern for me. I think that if you can buy into the Baltimore offense today, I would. If you can buy JK, if you can buy Lamar, or if you can buy Rashad, you need to do it. And I got super lucky because Rashad Bateman was available at the 13th overall pick. So what happened here is the player who was sitting at 113 didn't have a lot of picks and thinks that there is a lot of value in that second tier of wide receivers, the Terrence Marshalls, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Diami Browns. And so what he wanted was more picks. And so I gladly moved up in order to get my guy Rashad. And really what the moral of the story here is if you can determine what your board looks like, right? If you can determine where those tiers exist, if you can determine where you rank these players, you will be able to make really, really informed decisions about how to navigate your board. Do you think Kadarius Toney is really good? I don't. But if you think Kadarius Toney is really good and you see that his ADP is falling beyond 12, you're going to be able to get him at the top of the second. So maybe it makes sense for you to move all the way up into the top of the second, trade down from your first round picks and get all of those question mark receivers. Or maybe you have a board very similar to mine or Leo's where you're like, damn man, Mac Jones is not going to fall past, 111. So I need to go up and get him. I think that trading away 2 seconds and a third in order to move up and get one of these top tier players is worthwhile. Go and do that shit. Because it is at the end of the day a question about getting the best players and not about getting the most players. And that should be your philosophy too when you're playing the game of Dynasty. So that's a recap of all of the trades that we've had in the first round for this rookie draft. As you can see, it has been bonkers. I think a lot of people have been really hyped up by draft season. And I think that means that if you are playing in a Dynasty League and you have rookie picks upcoming, you have a lot of ability to navigate the board, stock up for the future, invest in your iron bank, as Mike Liu likes to call it, get those draft picks, get that value, or move up and get the guys who are going to make an impact on your team. If you like the content that we had on this episode, if you want to see how we rate the picks that happen in several of our Dynasty Leagues, please give us a like, give us a sub. We love supporting you. We love giving you good content, and we want to continue giving you that type of content that you come to our channel for every single week. So with that, this has been another episode of The Breakout. Let's hit that music.